January 22nd, 2026. Buddha Dhamma, Chapter 12.2, The Noble Path and the Threefold Training, Part 3, page 1303 to page 1308. D. Beginning and the end of the path. Chapter 12, we're talking about the path, the Majjhima Patipata, or if it's a verb, patipati, to do. The path, magga. D. Beginning and the end of the path. Sammatiti in Pali language is translated as right view or correct view. On the mundane level, or the conscious level, this refers to seeing things in accord to the teaching of Satya, also referred to Dhamma, the law. On the transcendent level, this refers to seeing things directly in accord with Satya, the truth of the Dhamma, the law, according to reality or the law of conditionality. Now, as we discuss this in detail on Sammaditthi in chapter 16. But the law of continuality is causes and conditions, or cause and effects. Seeing things or even believing in things in accord with the Dhamma teachings, the truth, the eternal law. For example, believing that by doing good, one will receive good, and doing evil, one will receive evil. It is enough to begin with the Dhamma practice. By having such views, titi, and beliefs, one is ready for practice. One begins the first stage of training in virtuous conduct. A person who possesses only this level of right view, sammatiti, however, tends to give great emphasis to the practice of morality and often does not advance to the stages of concentration and wisdom. In the Tipitaka, mundane right view, sammatiti, is often presented in the teaching on righteous conduct, Dhammacharya. The 10 wholesome courses of action, kusala kamma apata, which are ways of practicing makong pet, eightfold path, on the ordinary everyday level. The teaching on the Ariya Satya, the Four Noble Truths, presents a somewhat broader definition of sammatiti. Although it does not refer specifically to right view, it corresponds with the practice of the Eightfold Path in its entirety. A basic understanding of the Four Noble Truths, of nature of human problems, of causes to these problems, of the goal, and the way of practice is the foundation of, or commencing in, the Dhamma practice. This is similar to the knowledge mentioned earlier, to know where one is going, to know which path will lead one to this end, and to know where this path begins. The most comprehensive definition of sammatiti is knowledge of satya, knowledge of the truth as it is, to see things they truly are, and to see how things exist according to causes and conditions. The definition encompasses all previous definitions, including to see the nature of human problems, to see the conditions giving rise to these problems, and to see the nature of the path. This definition highlights the clear development of sammatiti, or the understanding along the entire stretch of the path. The more one practices, the more one knows, until one completes the practice and knows all that is essential to know. Right view, samadhi, is thus the starting point or the leading factor for practice along the middle way. It is the practical path factor playing a role all stages of spiritual practice. In the development of the path, however, samadhi is not only a prerequisite or support for other path factors. Samadhi, right view itself, is supported by other factors. The further one progresses on the path, the more right view, samadhi, is nourished, strengthened, and purified. Finally, samadhi, right view, becomes the key agent leading to the goal of the path. And thus, it is possible to say that samadhi is both the beginning and the end of the path. The fact that samadhi gradually unfolds and deepens during the course of the path reveals the quality of right view and varies during different stages of practice. The quality of right view at the start of the path differs from the right view at the culmination of the path. Right view, samadhi, at different stages of the path may have specific attributes which are distinct from general definition of samadhi, right view. Right view at the beginning of the path is incomplete, may not correspond to the full definition of samadhi. Similarly, right view at the end of the path has unique attributes so that it should be referred to by another word. In these circumstances, it is useful to distinguish between the Pali terms. Because samadhi, right view, is an aspect of panya, wisdom. An appropriate general or collective term to be used here is just panya, which refers to wisdom that has been generally cultivated by practicing on the path, magga. At each important stage of practice, this panya, this wisdom, has unique attributes and is referred to by special terms, and we will discuss them below. According to the Majjhima Patipata, the middle way, it is possible to present an outline of panya, wisdom development, as follows. For the average person whose learning depends on the advice and teaching of others, spiritual training will begin with some form of belief, which in Buddhism is referred to as sattha, faith. This sattha, faith, may be a belief in the basic rationality of a particular teaching, a general belief in logical analysis, or a confidence in the reason presentation by the teacher. From this point on, student receives teaching, listens, study, and train. This results in increasing understanding and the reason discernment within the students themselves, which is broadly referred as samadhi. When this understanding gradually grows and becomes more clear through engagement or through experience, so that it becomes a realization, it becomes wisdom has been developed to the stage of sammanana, right knowledge. This stage transcends all forms of belief, sattha, and reason opinion, dikti. This is the final stage, which reaches the goal. Liberation, vimutti, which is referred to right deliverance, samma vimutti. Panya, wisdom development, can be illustrated thus. First, sattha, faith. Then, right view, samadhi. Accumulated, sammanana, right knowledge. And finally, resolve to right deliverance, samma vimutti. Following this process, at the beginning, wisdom exists in a latent form, or is an accessory to sattha, faith. Wisdom then gradually develops on its own until it becomes right knowledge. At which stage it is pure outstanding. Here, sattha no longer exists because it has been completely replaced by wisdom. Only at this stage is awakening or liberation possible. This process will be described in more detail in subsequent chapters. Note that sattha, faith, participating in this process is a faith conductive to wisdom or leading to panya, leading to wisdom. Sattha or ditthi, the faith or belief, must be accompanied by panya, wisdom, will be based upon reasoned discernment, akaravati sattha, or sattanana sampayutta, with reasoned discernment. It does not refer to sattha, faith in which one blindly entrusts oneself to something without needing to apply reasoned contemplation. Amulika sattha or sattanana vipayutta. In any case, it is not adequate to view panya development, wisdom development, or the development of samadhi as the beginning solely by just sattha. Technically speaking, there are exceptional persons who are able to cultivate wisdom without relying on sattha in anything or others. They rely on the entirety of yoniso manasikara, just wise reflection, reason analysis, sound judgment, the ability to see things as they truly are, according to causes and conditions, until they develop wisdom to the stage of penetrative insight into the truth. Likewise, the wisdom development of ordinary people who begin with sattha, faith, relies on their ability to apply wise reflection, to apply yoniso manasikara. Transcendental wisdom in particular, which fathoms the truth and completely dispels mental impurity, is unable to arise without wise reflection. Correct, desirable faith is linked to or activates wise reflection. Therefore, the complete process should be illustrated. Faith moves, sattha moves to yoniso manasikara. Manasikara, yoniso manasikara develops samadhi. Samadhi develops samanana, right knowledge. And right knowledge cultivates and then moves to deliverance, sama vimukti. In sum, there are two factors given rise to samadhi. First is faith, sattha, which refers to trust in or the reliance on panya of others, wisdom of others. It arises as a response to the teaching of other people, and it marks the beginning of spiritual practice by way of external conditions. Second, yoniso manasikara, wise reflection, which refers to an ability to think for oneself or to think correctly for oneself. It marks the beginning of spiritual practice by way of internal conditions. The term sattha, faith, does not refer directly to the source of a person's understanding, but rather an internal spiritual quality connecting a person's to external factors. The real external source of understanding is other people who influence one's belief, or the teaching of others, which is in Buddhism is referred to as instruction by others, parato gosa. besides helping to generate sattva and acting as an indirect method for establishing samadhi, right view, the instruction by others can be a direct impediment or impeding us by applying yoniso manasikara, wise reflection. For this reason, the Tipitaka presents two sorts of factors for samadhi: the external factor of words of others, paratokosa, and the internal factor of yoniso manasikara, wise reflection. Buddhism gives great emphasis to samadhi because people, including Buddhists themselves, generally do not give this path factor sufficient attention. Even when they do recognize its importance, people often just give it a lip service without going any further investigation. For this reason, it is necessary to remind people to first acknowledge the importance of samadhi, and even more importantly, to ways to generate it. Therefore, before discussing various path factors in subsequent chapters, we will begin by describing at more length the conditions for samadhi. Now that's the end of chapter 12.